Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. What do? You swim, swim, swim. Hey everybody, it is the Baldy from the Beardy and the Baldy. So, over a week ago I got to go see Finding Dory. And it was actually a pretty big occasion because we took my daughter to the movies for the first time. That was her first movie. But basically, at the end of the day, the question, as it always will be on this YouTube channel, is it good? Is it worth it? My answer is, I guess. That's it. I'm sounding like such a heartless person saying that, but here's the thing. Simple as this. Finding Dory and the story that is her big adventure is something that I feel like I've seen many other times in other movies. It's actually very. It didn't feel as creative, and it didn't feel as fresh, and it didn't feel quite as imaginative as a lot of other Pixar movies have. I mean, the Toy Story movies, love them or hate them, have increased in story and quality, and their progression going forward, I always felt, got fresher as it went on, and it got more interesting as it went on, and added characters, and you get mythologies, like the whole idea in the second one with, you know, Buzz Lightyear and Zurg and all this stuff. And those are welcome ones to me for some reason, even though I end up having a Kevin Smith moment every time I watch those movies because they pull at my heartstrings like crazy. And as for any other movies out there that are like the sequel movies of Pixar, I haven't really checked many of them out, to be honest. So I have more the Toy Story movies to fall back on. And you know, those I always enjoyed the creativity and the society-ishness that they create with these toys and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of why Finding Nemo for me, when it first came out, it wasn't really one I had to see. It didn't have that freshness and that creativity that I associated to Pixar at that point. It felt more like this would be a Disney movie. This would be a movie that any company could tell, and they probably couldn't tell it as well as Pixar did, but they could tell it, and you kind of saw from a mile away where certain things might go, and it did it better than I expected, and it did it with a lot more interesting characters and environments that were fun and creatively used and unique, compared to other movies out there and whatnot. And it had a soul, it had a heart, and it was basically, I will say this, it was one of Pixar's first masterpiece kind of movies in a sense, because this could have been their biggest flop. This could have been the one to turn everybody's attention veering right or left on how you viewed Pixar, and instead it became this endearing movie, an adventure movie of a father trying to find his son who got kidnapped. Finding Dory, for me, it doesn't raise the bar the way Toy Story 2 raised the bar for the Toy Story movies. Finding Dory didn't raise the bar for the Nemo/Dory movies, and I'm looking at this one kind of going, I don't think if they try to push it any further with these movies, I feel like they are going to lose a lot of the goodwill that fans have for these movies. Finding Dory it's not like Nemo where, you know, she's captured and it's everybody in a rush to try to save her the way the Finding Nemo was. Finding Dory is like a personal journey for Dory. So it's almost like the flip side, or the darker mirror image of a story that Nemo established. Nemo's story was about him overcoming his disability and showing his father. He wasn't even overcoming his disability. It was about him showing his father he could do something without his dad constantly doting on him in that way. And it was about Marlin just, you know, breaking away from being this overprotective parent and realizing his son has to go out into the world and do his own stuff, make his own mistakes, maybe get hurt sometimes, but learn from these experiences. He can't be protected and just put into a bubble and expected to live like that. That's not a way to live. In the case of Finding Dory, it's her own personal journey, trying to figure out where her parents are, because in the first movie she did mention, my parents, did I lose them? You know, there's that one little offhanded moment. And this is a lot more about her coming to terms with the short-term memory and her relying on herself and showing others that they can follow her and follow her craziness, and it might all work out in the end, just like it did in the first movie for her and Marlin when they were after Nemo. In that way, I felt like this one was a weird one for me, because usually in sequels they get bigger in scope and they get bigger in the overall atmosphere of the universe for these characters. Finding Dory, to me, the idea of the institute, the Sea Life Institute that she's trying to get to for her parents, it's bigger in a sense of, yeah, there's a ton more locations, and there's a ton more of the like exhibits and whatnot, but I felt like it lost a lot of what made Nemo work for me. Because of that reason, you have so many fish just encased in things, and their interactions are limited to, if Dory isn't in the actual tank with a lot of these characters, you don't really have a lot going on. And then when they're in the tank with those characters, it's kind of claustrophobic in a way. So like you had the moments in the first one where all of those fish are like mimicking things, and they're, you know, they're turning into Marlin while he's having his moments, and they're like bad-mouthing him behind his back, and they turn into the pirate ship, and they turn into a swordfish and whatnot. And, you know, that was fun, and that was an experience of the ocean life, or the jellyfish and the jellyfish maze they had to get through and whatnot. In this one, it was a little more like they have to find a way to get these fish to jump from scene to scene and make it look plausible. So you're having these moments where, like, I guess that would work, and, you know, in the scheme of the movie, okay. And then at the very end of the movie, they have this entire sequence where it's like, there's no freaking way this should work at all. So it asks you to take suspension of disbelief so far, and then in the same movie, it also breaks it and turns it into, like, it's like a Greek wedding. They're just slamming the plates down on the ground, and it's like breaking. Okay, you know, this is going to be the climactic moment of the movie in that way. But that being said, okay, I'm way ahead of myself on this part. So yeah, the movie, it's got heart still. It does have heart. I'm not going to ever say this movie doesn't have heart. And if you don't watch the first moments of baby Dory on the screen, and at least your heart goes out to Dory, because you're seeing firsthand her childhood, and you're seeing her parents interacting with her and trying to help her learn to fit in socially with other children, because she's going through her short-term memory. So hi, I'm Dory, and I have short-term memory loss, and she's trying to, you know, fit in and whatnot. It does give you a bit of a tug at the heartstrings watching those moments. Any moment with her and the little Dory and whatnot, it is unbelievable how much it really works for me. I love those moments. It was like Up for me, in a sense, where in Up, within the first 10 minutes you're bawling, and for me, in the first 5-10 minutes of this movie, I was getting misty-eyed already, because just watching her and the voice they have for her, and she's trying to fit in, and she's trying to figure things out, and her memory's going all nuts on her again, like always, and seeing a baby fish going through this, it just gets me, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a heartless bastard. I mean, as much as I'm not a huge fan of this movie, I'm also not going to say it's a bad movie and whatnot, because it's got some great moments. But yeah, the baby Dory moments in particular are so so endearing and so they're the heart of the movie for me in a lot of ways. And the payoff of those memories leading to her with her eventual discovery, if and when she finds her parents and whatnot, the payoff there was great, and it got me again. I was like a little sucker. I was like Kevin Smithing it like crazy in that moment too. But yeah, it's got heart. It's got a heart. The only thing is Dory is a better co-star, in my opinion. Dory is the kind of character where a little bit goes a long way in a certain sense. Dory is, because of her short-term memory, she's always reminding you she has short-term memory. You're always remembering she has short-term memory, and you're always like as endearing and as lovable as Dory is as a character. She works better as a foil to Marlin in the first movie, where it brought him out of himself and it helped him to deal with his journey in a better, more positive way than he might have been going about it. And she managed to get him more help than he probably would have on his own. So she is a helpful character, and she's helpful in this one as well. It's just the aspect of it's hard to have a character who is like every couple of minutes being a blank slate again, and then having to relearn everything that you as an audience keep seeing and and you have to retread that every time. It feels almost in certain parts of the movie near the end where the story just basically said, we're tired of doing this for you too. We're just going to let this play out, and we're not going to keep referencing this. We're going to let you have fun with it, and it's not going to keep having her, like wandering off into the side, and all of a sudden she forgets what she's trying to do and she's frustrated again. Because they do those moments quite a few times. And I love that they do those moments, because it shows you it's not an easy thing for her to deal with. And if you're a caregiver of someone who's going through something like that, I can imagine it's a really frustrating situation to be in. I can imagine why Marlin is frustrated half the time. I mean, the guy's trying to raise a kid, plus he's got a short-term memory loss Dory living next door, and they're like basically a makeshift family at this point. And there's a certain amount of like, yeah, I mean, I pity the guy too, because he's got to be on her all the time, or else she swims away and then she'll get lost, and you don't want her to get hurt, you don't want her to, there's all of these things going through your head. And in a way, it's hard to put all of the emphasis on a character like that, because there's a lot of stuff already out there in the world that makes you go, this is, it's moments like this where, like, for instance, my mother and I both, near the end of my father's life a few years ago, he was going through dementia. So there is a certain amount of like, you go to the movies to escape reality sometimes, and it's like this movie kind of forced you to look something like that right in the eye, and you're sympathizing with her, you're on board with her, and you're like, you can do it, and you're thinking to yourself, come on, Dory, you can get through this. But there's another part of you that's like, this would be horrible to deal with on a daily basis, and it's not that much fun, and that's kind of what took some of the life out of the movie for me, in a sense. Like, the little Dory moments, the baby Dory moments are beautiful. There's some good moments actually in the movie. The cameos from returning cast are great. Like Mr. Ray is back again as the teacher for Nemo's class. He's the reason that Dory starts on her journey, because he's talking about migration and the idea of fish finding their home again, and it just, boom, it triggers her memory, and she's off and running from that point. You get Crush and Squirt showing up again, and they're always fun to see, and one of the more memorable moments from the first movie, and they get probably half the screen time they did in the first movie for finding Dory in this one. And you get other new characters who are endearing, but in all honesty, there's a whale shark named Destiny who's nearsighted. There is a beluga whale named Bailey who is, he has a problem with his echolocation. He bonked his head, and he can't figure out how to get his echolocation back. and you have an octopus who actually only has 7 tentacles, if I remember right, named Hank, and he's a little bit of a weirdo. He's a little bit of a he's a curmudgeon. He's a little he's like a PTSD person. The whole point with him is he wants this tag that Dory has on her fin, and it will make sure he gets a one-way ticket from there, which I'm pretty sure it was in like San Diego or whatever. They were trying to this Marine Life Institute, this like catch and release institute. Once they catch an animal or a fish or aquatic wildlife that they have been hurt or there's some ecology issue that is messing with them, they'll catch them, they'll rehab them, and then they'll release them back into the ocean if they are healthy enough to be released. If not, they get sent to Cleveland, if I remember right. And his whole thing is he wants to get to Cleveland because he does not want to go back out in the ocean again. It's like Cleveland is their satellite, the satellite location to take all the animals that aren't able to get back in the wild, and it's like they're in an aquarium for life or whatever. And those characters for me were like, they were okay, but honestly, like the tank in the first one in the dentist's office with all the characters that Nemo is introduced to, as well as the characters that Dory and Marlin meet along the way, actually are more interesting characters in the first one than the ones here. It's like these to me felt a little more like it was a necessary thing to have them, more than it felt like there were legitimate reasons why these characters needed to be in this movie per se. They're not bad characters at all. They're they're characters that by the end of the movie you're cool with them and you enjoy them, but there is something about them where the zaniness isn't there. The tank group in particular from the first movie, there was this zaniness with them. I mean, you didn't know what to expect with them half the time. They had that initiation with Nemo, and that was funny to watch, and there was some good moments in that because of those characters. And this time around, it's more they are supporting cast in the way that Disney movie 362A might be or whatever, like it's the typical fare. The story itself to me it wasn't quite on par with it. Like Nemo, a lot of people view as a masterpiece, Finding Nemo. It was Pixar's real first attempt to go for that movie where it could fail. And it was still in their period where they were building their brand, and a lot of people had expectations. And when you said, oh, well, there's going to be a movie about a fish that's missing, and I do remember there were people like, this movie's not going to do well at all. And then it turned into this, like, Pixar's masterpiece, basically. It was telling stories that, like you couldn't necessarily tell other places. And it was going for the gold. It was actually going for the brass ring with that one, and it deservedly is looked at in that way. And for those people who love that movie and love Pixar, that's still one of those, like, I kind of hold it up there with WALL-E in a sense, where WALL-E to me is a masterpiece in storytelling in one way, where it's a visual storytelling masterpiece. Nemo is almost a storytelling masterpiece in an emotional way, if that makes any sense. So Finding Dory, it's got no pun intended. It's got it's an uphill swim on this one, uphill battle of, can this top the first one? And in my opinion, it can't. It's sort of more a watered down version of it, and there's a lot of recycled elements from the first movie that you'll see in this, and don't feel bad if you see it, because honestly, the template is still there of it's a Finding Nemo, just now it's on land and it's in this aquatic institute, and that's kind of what you get in this one. There's some zany moments, and there's honestly one of my favorite otters. The otters are one of my favorite moments in the movies this summer. To be honest, it won me over with that. The fact that they use otters as a distraction is amazing, and the way they did it was awesome. They are the most cute thing. I mean, they rival Baby Dory for how adorable they are. I'm sorry, they just do. But beyond that, like I said, there's a moment at the end that's all suspension of disbelief, and any amount of credibility they build up, even with how some of these moments are a little far-fetched to think of. Any credibility they build up is just completely shot, because they're just like, whatever, you know, we're gonna do this because this is what a Pixar movie does. And it's done a lot in other Pixar movies. I'm not saying that's a good thing though, because you're recycling from now Toy Story as well for the ending of this movie. Was I laughing? Yes. But I was also thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't want to be the old man in the movie theater when I watch these movies, and for some reason that moment took me so out of the movie where I'm just like, okay, but I'm laughing, and you know, they got me, whatever. But yeah, I mean, actually, you know, Dory herself, like I said, she works better as a co-star, and there's a lot of serious issues that you kind of get into when you think of Dory and her disability. So from my point of view, from having a personal, my own personal story with my father, and my mom being the caregiver to him at the time too, there was a certain amount of, like, you know, it's not funny to see her forgetting, and it's not funny to see some of these moments as much as they were in the first movie anymore. There was a certain amount of, you know, my heart went out to Marlin because I could see why he'd be frustrated. My heart went out to Nemo because his life probably, he might be thinking this is fun, but it's like, you know, it's still, his dad is, you know, like Marlin is, you know, multitasking. Then he's got basically 2 kids on his hand at all times, or fins, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. It's a movie that's worth going to see, and to be honest with, you know, it's still #1 this weekend. So obviously, you know, families are going nuts over this movie, and everybody's like, oh, this is great, let's go take the kids. Take the kids. Because a lot of the things that I'm thinking of in this movie from my own personal experiences aren't things kids are going to focus on. Parents might, grandparents, if you're there with your kids, might, but the kids are still going to love this one. It still has as much heart as Nemo in certain places, that, like I said, with the Baby Dory sequences and whatnot. It's got zaniness that kids are going to love. It's got adventure. It's definitely got some good comedy. There's a whole sequence in it that it's one of my favorites, where you have there's a pool where the kids can interact with the marine life. So they have like starfish and some of these other little harmless sea creatures and whatnot. And Dory and Hank, the octopus, end up in that pool accidentally. And just watching that moment had me laughing, because they play it as such a, like a horror movie moment. They get out, watch out, you know, the hands, and then you just see these hands coming in from these kids. And it took notes from Toy Story 3 for me, which amused me, because in Toy Story 3 they have a moment where the kids come in and all the kids just beat the living bejesus out of all the toys when they get into daycare in the morning. And that amused me. I can't help it. That amused me on a lot of levels when I saw it in that movie. So in this movie, the way that they played it was one better in a sense, because I loved that it was almost like a horror movie for the fish. And what I do love too, this movie takes place an actual year after Nemo. So when you get to the very end of the credits, they're cribbing off Marvel people. They have an after credits little moment, and when you see who shows up at the end, you're gonna think to yourself, really? That is either crazy or I don't buy it at all. So I'm curious if you want to post in the bottom, the comments of what you thought of that. If you've already seen the movie, feel free. I personally, I thought it was great to see that moment, but then the other part of me was like, but this is a year later. How does that work, you know? Like, so, and I'm putting way too much thought into it. But yeah, it's worth going to check out with the kids. It's worth going to check out with the family. If you like Finding Nemo, go check it out. I got to admit though, like I talked to my wife is a huge fan of Finding Nemo. I think that's probably her favorite Pixar movie. And I was like, so what did you think? And she goes, it was good, but I like Nemo better. I'm like, yeah, I'm right there with you, I think. It didn't bring anything really new to the proceedings of the Nemo stuff. And to be honest, I don't really need to see another sequel to this, because if they have to find anyone else, it's going to turn into the Taken movies for me with Pixar, and I'm going to say, this is bad parenting. That's all it is to it. You can't find anybody else. The next person they're going to try to find is Marlin, because he's probably crazy and he wants to swim away and have a vacation. And then Nemo and Dory have to find him, because all Marlin wants to do is just have some peace and quiet. Maybe, I don't know. But if they do that movie, and if you do this Pixar, I want a cut of that money, number one. But if you do that movie, I'm going to feel horrible, because it's basically the, you know, Daddy needs a vacation movie, instead of it being something where it's actually like, we have to find this person because they are in trouble or whatever. So I don't know. I personally hope this is the last time I see Nemo and Dory and Marlin and all the other supporting characters in a movie like this. If they do something else where it has Finding not in the title, and they want to focus on some of the other side characters, or go back to the fish from the aquarium in the first movie, or, you know, do a Crush movie and Squirt, I would love seeing those, because those are characters I enjoy. But please God, don't make another Finding and then fill in the blank after that, because no, you can't do it 3 times. You did it twice, you're good. No trifectas on this one. Otherwise, it's just bad parenting the movie. And yeah, but anyway, on the rating review scale, I do hope to buy it, because it was good enough that I would like to own a copy. And I don't know, it's one of those movies, if I watch it a couple more times, it might actually be raised in my eyes of what I feel of it right now. To be honest, right now I'm in kind of like Finding Dory mode, where I'm trying to remember parts of it, and I'm not remembering it as well as I did, which to me kind of shows where my interest was in the movie too. So that, you know, take that as you will. There's also, really quick, a celebrity cameo that's really fun in the movie, and you don't see them, but you hear them. And every time they reference them, especially, I loved it. I was laughing. I thought that was great. And beyond that, yeah, it's worth a look. Go see it. Just go in with your expectations a little bit lowered, because it's not going to be Finding Nemo 2. It's not. Finding Nemo was sort of like lightning in a bottle for Pixar the first time. And that one, like I said, it's not my favorite Pixar movie either, but it is a masterpiece of storytelling in ways, and it's definitely, it's earned its place there. It is. It has, in my opinion, over time, and rewatching it. Finding Dory is a little more, it's not quite, you know, a cash grab, but it isn't quite adding to the previous one. It's definitely, like, if Finding Nemo's here, Dory would be here for me at this point. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's a lot of movies that fall short on the second one, and that's just the way it is, and that's the end of it. Like I said, I don't need Finding fill in the blank after this point. So, you know, it was fun to revisit these characters one more time, but hopefully it doesn't become a repetitive issue. So yeah, that's just, you know, one Baldy's opinion, and, you know, don't let it sour you. Go check it out if you get a chance. And if you have, feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, right, whatever you want in the comments section. Don't be afraid to subscribe. follow our craziness, follow our geekdom. Uh, just, you know, two guys who love movies and comics ranting about this pop culture stuff. Yeah, this is what we're about. So anyway, hey, thanks for hanging in there with me, and I'm trying to make these videos a little shorter so that they're hopefully a lot less frustrating to listen to, and I'm doing my best on that. Jesse is setting the benchmark for me of conciseness, and I really want to try to get to 15-minute videos myself. So working on that. It's on the to-do list, but for now, part of the to-do list is I will catch you next time, and I will see you later. And that's it. Have a good one, guys.